Shedeur Sanders is not moving up the Cleveland Browns depth chart. And while I disagree, the reaction has been out of control. We'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso. With the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, The Legacy, Louis DiBiase. On today's show, we're going to break down everything you need to know from preseason week 3, the final week of the preseason, folks. We have finally made it. We'll talk about the Saints getting closer to naming their starting quarterback. We'll talk about the Micah Parsons drama that continues with the Dallas Cowboys. But we'll start with the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation, which I thought got to a fever pitch this weekend with some of the crazy stuff that we were seeing people say. Now, before we dive into all of that, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. The Browns played a bunch of different quarterbacks in their preseason game. Some of them look better than others, and I'll throw it to my guy Spencer from Locked On Browns to break it down.
Dillon Gabriel's show, and he was great today, undeniably. Picked up where he left off from Philly, just without the turnovers. You kind of saw in real time that he had learned from his mistakes. There was a play where he got flushed out to his left and threw the ball away this time. So that was good to see him kind of learning as he goes. And frankly, 12 and 19, 128 yards and a touchdown, led a couple scoring drives. You saw the reasons why the Browns clearly liked him. You saw the reasons why the Browns clearly wanted him to be their pick in the third round and the guy that they sort of invested a higher draft pick in. And I think that was on full display today. It was good to see, and I think you feel pretty good about that backup quarterback position moving into cut-down day on Tuesday. And then Shedeur Sanders took over, and it was not Shedeur's day, unfortunately. Sacked 5 times, only completed a couple passes. He was under duress quite a bit throughout his time out on the field. He was playing with the threes, the third-team offensive line and all that, so there's some context there. But I think you saw today that Shedeur still has some room to grow, and that's okay. He's a rookie. I think that goes for both these rookies. Just like how last week we talked about Dillon Gabriel's, still sort of learning some things and having room for growth. I think the same thing applies to Shedeur Sanders. It's not always smooth sailing for a rookie, especially when taken in day 2 and 3. And I think Andrew Berry actually talked about the idea that he's kind of learning a new language here in the NFL from a college offense to an NFL one. Give it time. It's going to be okay. But I think in general, we can all feel pretty good about this Browns quarterback room going into the regular season, where it sounds like they're going to keep all 4.
Well, I like the idea of keeping all 4, I guess, if you don't want to give up, the young guys and you want to be surrounded. Mm-hmm. But why do we feel good about the Browns quarterback room? I think they have the worst quarterback room, probably the second worst quarterback room in the NFL. So I get, Flacco looked good and all of that, but I guess that's part of my complaint with Shedeur Sanders not getting a better opportunity is this quarterback room sucks. I hate to be so straightforward with it, but this is a terrible quarterback room, one of the bottom 3 in the NFL. And that's why it makes, even if you like Dillon Gabriel more, then roll with Dillon Gabriel this year. I just don't, I don't know. I don't see it the way that maybe some do in Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, this almost Tim Tebow-like narrative that's forming around Shedeur Sanders where the whole NFL is out to get this guy, and he's actually an elite Josh Allen level talent that just isn't getting the chance. I've kind of changed my tune on Shedeur. During the draft, I actually do believe there was almost a unspoken agreement between NFL owners. Let's make an example out of this kid. But for now, the conspiracy theorists have just taken that too far because it gets clicks where now the Browns are setting him up to fail on purpose and they drafted him to sabotage his career. There's just some crazy tinfoil hat takes going on. And he's not kind of like Tim Tebow. I think there was a part of it where the NFL, I think kind of there was a unified agreement about this player, but he's not some incredible player that's just totally just not being allowed to play. You know what I mean? And I think that's Shedeur Sanders. I think he was a better prospect than a 5th rounder, but people are acting like this was a first overall talent that's just not getting that opportunity. And I think even in that game, it showed he's not that guy. So I think people are just taking it a little bit too far with Shedeur is like the victim. Shedeur is the victim compared to what how the NFL is treating him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and I agree. I think the general point, because I have defended Shedeur Sanders throughout the process. Same. I thought he was better than where he got drafted. I thought he should have gotten more opportunities. I mean, he was on the side field while like the big boy quarterbacks were up on the proper practice field at times during Brown's training camp and stuff. Like that stuff is ridiculous to me. And you can make the argument like he's not given a normal fair shot there and he's not being treated how well that he deserves for how much talent he does have. But at the same time, I agree with you. He wasn't a confirmed first-round talent, and he does have warts as a player where we saw that in the game. He's backing up. He's playing hero ball. He just drifts in the pocket so far back. So it's like, yes, he was out there with guys who aren't going to make the team, but he's playing against guys who probably aren't going to make the team for the other team. And would he have played better with the group that Dillon Gabriel got to play with? Probably so. But would it have been significantly better, and would it have gotten rid of all the issues that he had in the game? Like, no. So I find my theory on this, Louis, quite honestly, is that people have a vested interest in having access to the Sanders family because it's such a lightning rod. One of the guys locally who cover the Titans, who I'm friends with, who's on the beat, said, our website's going to get 70% more traffic this weekend than normal because Shedeur Sanders got ejected from a game for punching a guy and then got waived by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, there's media members out there saying like, oh, this is ridiculous. How did he get ejected? He literally threw a punch in the middle of the game. It's just
while the ref's watching him right in front of the ref.
Yes. I try to defend Shedeur, and I understand that they've probably had unfair situations their whole life because people don't like their dad or think that they don't deserve what they're getting because their dad's a celebrity player and all of this. So I respect that and acknowledge that that is true. All right. Yeah. But at the same time, they're also being defended in an emotional, crazy, tribal way almost, to the point where, we have respected newsbreakers for the NFL saying it's a joke that his brother gets thrown out of a game for punching somebody. Like, we have to have it's like you said earlier, I can buy a little bit of the conspiracy that the NFL was trying to humble him in a way, se, but it's gone too far in the defense of where we can't have honest discussions about the player anymore, just like the example you brought up with Tim Tebow.
That's why I compared it to Tebow because, I think there were times where Tebow should obviously be getting an opportunity here, but it went so far as ESPN back in the day would carry it. Like, again, they're holding an MVP caliber quarterback back and not giving him an opportunity. And that's where I cooled off on defending Sanders because I don't think he's that level of talent. And Dillon Gabriel has looked impressive, but Cleveland also doesn't help. They add fuel to the fire when during a 2-minute drill, they do pull him and give the ball to Huntley. So it does make you wonder a little bit. It adds fuel to the fire, but I don't know. I think the conspiracies, or at least like the defense of Shedeur, has gone a little bit too far as of the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, to use an old TV phrase, it's jump the shark a little bit at this point. And I can't in good faith continue to ride this train where it's going if people are going to be doing stuff.
It's becoming a circus.
Yeah, and it's not just like, crazy toxic people on Twitter. We're talking about some of the biggest names in football media are like saying some crazy things, in my opinion. I think a lot of it has to do with protecting relationships and stuff like that.
And it gets clicks, man. I mean, like you said with your buddy. I mean, like the numbers go up when you talk about Shedeur Sanders. So
listen, and the blood's on my hands too. What are we leading with, Louis?
Yeah,
We're leading with
point.
Shedeur Sanders and Shedeur Sanders.
Pot, meat, kettle.
Yep. It has to be the case, I guess. It is what it is. But with that being said, to do more low-hanging fruit, the Dallas Cowboys and their drama. But Micah Parsons did go a little too far this weekend. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online as well. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL for 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th. It's officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. You could take a flyer on Jordan Love in the MVP race. You can crown your champion in August. You could have a parlay with division dark horse winners. The world is your oyster, folks. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. It's FanDuel. Play your game. All right, Louie, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL again, recapping all the big stories from preseason week 3. We talked about the situation in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders, but now I want to move down to Dallas, where the Micah Parsons and Dallas Cowboy soap opera, quite frankly, continues to play out. And our guys over on the Cowboys Squad Show talked about Micah Parsons and his back and the table and the nachos and all of it.
After the game today, you had Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons walking into the locker room, and some of the beat reporters there were asking Micah for some comments, and he didn't want to give any. But Trayvon came out and talked on Micah's behalf and said, hey, Micah, his back was really sore this morning. He's going to have to maybe go get an MRI. We'll see. It's ridiculous that it's got this far. It's just all nonsense, right? Like, do I really think Micah's back is sore? No, he doesn't want to be there. Like, he doesn't want to have to continue to do this contract stuff. We see him laying on the trainer's table during the game with his eyes closed, trying to take a nice nap. Kind of can't blame him a little bit. That third quarter was dragging just a little more than I would like, but it's all just nonsense, and it's ridiculous.
I mean, and that's, if you watch the Netflix, if you watch the Netflix, Jerry said he wants a 365-day soap opera. Well, congratulations. That's what you got.
I mean, and here's my thing. We talk about this all the time with the Cowboys, and I understand the idea of theater. This is all entertainment. I really make this point on my personal show all the time. Like, yeah, I want, the Titans aren't a team that gets talked about in the national media like the Cowboys are, like the Eagles are, and it's like, a lot of people say, I don't care about that, just win the games. I'm a football fan more than just 18 Sundays a year. You know what I mean? I love the conversation, the entire ecosystem of football. So I get that from the Cowboys' perspective and why Jerry Jones values that. But I think at this point, it's just backfired. It's just gone too far to where it's affecting his team. It's affecting the locker room. It's affecting the togetherness of the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that when you do this consistently, at the end of the day, there are certain fights that you have with your significant other where you kind of don't forget them. And you kind of can't come back from it. And I just think that Jerry Jones has done this with so many of the Cowboys' top players that in the locker room, they can't trust the organization. They have to have some sour feelings. And if you have enough of your leaders in the locker room feeling that way, it is going to taint your team. It's going to taint your togetherness. And I think it has affected the Dallas Cowboys' ability to win football games, even if Jerry Jones doesn't think that or doesn't think that it does. I think it's just gone too far in one direction, and now it's hurting the team.
Yeah, and I think personally, Jerry Jones is prioritizing the wrong things. I think in the name of being, talked about in the national media and like being that soap opera 365 days a year, you are sacrificing, again, like culture inside the locker room, building a sustainable winner. And I think there's a direct correlation between the two things and why the Dallas Cowboys have not been to an NFC championship or a Super Bowl in my lifetime. So, or pretty much in my lifetime since I've been coherent. And to me, like, I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you, not all publicity, in my opinion, is not all publicity is good publicity. So alienating your star faces of the franchise, I just think that's not good for business. That's bad for business. The logic to me is just astounding. You know what else gets you talked about 365 days a year? Winning championships. So maybe Jerry Jones prioritize that and you'll still be talked about. It's crazy.
I think that we're at a crossroads of who's going to be happy. Is Jerry Jones going to be happy because his team's in the news and being talked about and he's checking media boxes? Or is players going to be happy in the locker room? And it seems like that he is choosing to keep himself happy rather than have his players be happy.
That's crazy. I just don't even know how does that, Tyler, even make you happy? You're being talked about, but being talked about as the most embarrassing team in the NFL right now. I mean, that's not good publicity.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing where you crave attention, but you're getting attention for being terrible. I don't know how that is rewarding. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I do a podcast, I do media. There's a little bit of an attention seeker in that prototype, in that build. Everybody who does media, in my opinion, has a little bit of that, hey, look at me, because that's how people like that kind of develop that muscle. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I understand some of those things, but when it's just to have tomatoes thrown at you, it's are you just bathing in the tomato juice at that point? I can't understand that sort of philosophy. And at the end of the day, you look at the Cowboys, I don't think that they're a bad team either. I think they could be super competitive, and they have some really good players, and they have a good high floor because they have so many good players. And it's just if they just had a stronger locker room, that might be enough to make them more of a contender and be closer to being that team. Because you're right, the ultimate attention is for the winning, and they just have not done it. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, I would imagine, and I can't remember a Cowboys Super Bowl either. It's been so long, and I do agree that we've gone to a place where it was a healthy amount of winning and soap opera, the perfect amount, which is why that new Netflix doc about the Cowboys is fantastic, because they are the most recognizable brand name in the NFL sphere. But at the end of the day, we've gone off the deep end with Jerry Jones way too far the other way, and it does impact the field whether people think so or not.
The reason they have to make that documentary, the reason he has to start stuff with all of his stars is because they don't win. So he thinks this is the way people talk about you. Well, no, if you were winning, again, like I said, I don't know how he sees another team in his division becoming what they used to be in the 90s and be I'm totally okay with this approach that I'm taking. It's just unbelievable. The Eagles have become one of the best teams in the NFL over the last 8 years. They've won 2 championships and have been the gold standard. And he's acting like his team's the WWE. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it literally It reminds me of the meme where the guy is in third place and he's celebrating with champagne, and the first place and second place guy are looking down at him what are you doing? Right. It's the Eagles are looking at the Cowboys right now, and the Cowboys are celebrating all this attention they're getting for this Micah Parsons stuff, but what does it mean? You lost. Yeah, it is super embarrassing, and I think that the reality is that is the way that Jerry Jones wants it. It's just unfortunate for Cowboys fans and their players that they don't want to be what they need to be successful. But with that being said, trying to be successful, the New Orleans Saints aren't having a lot of success with that lately either. And let's see how this quarterback decision works out, because they got to be close to crowning their starter. And it sounds like it's not going in the direction that I think they hope for. Today's episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, folks, and you can already feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, building their championship squads. I did my first draft this weekend, so ready to go. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm going to be playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating their millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun new ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. You want to play instantly with your friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. You prefer the classics? Get a crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. Look, the NFL season kicks off September the 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, football fans, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We've talked about the Shedeur Sanders situation with the Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, and Micah Parsons. Now I want to talk about the New Orleans Saints, who are the last team in the NFL to announce their starting quarterback for the year. Before we get into it, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. You got Vinny Iyer and one of the hosts of Locked On NFL, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk, getting you ready for your fantasy draft so you can become the most informed manager and take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But the New Orleans Saints, again, still haven't announced their starting quarterback. Final preseason game of the year, we saw both quarterbacks, and my guy Ross Jackson, the mastermind, thinks he knows who is leading the race.
I think this is going to be Spencer Rattler's job to begin the season going into week one, but we're certainly going to see both of these quarterbacks during the 2025 NFL season. Now, I will say head coach Kellen Moore could surprise and just go right to wanting to see what he's got in his rookie in Tyler Shough. But if they really go by what this battle has been, the really only separating factor is that Spencer Rattler had a stronger training camp overall, because in these three preseason games, there really hasn't been a big division between the two quarterbacks. So if Rattler indeed came into this game, the Denver game, with a lead, which is something you can take away from considering he was the only one to get snaps with the entire first team today, then I don't know that Tyler Shough did enough to change the head coach's or the coaching staff's mind with this game. Though I thought his touchdown drive was really impressive. It just took a little while for him to get things going. Of course, he wasn't playing with the first team, but I think him not playing with the first team tells you a little something in terms of where things might stand.
Listen, I said this a long time ago, like at the beginning of training camp, even after the Derek Carr news, and once they got Shough in the building. Shough is handpicked, traded up for, from the New Orleans Saints' new coaching staff. The previous coaching staff had a 5th-round pick in Spencer Rattler. How is it possible that Tyler Shough, who is already 26 years old and had 7 years in college and is experienced, how is it possible that the guy that you handpicked can't beat out a 5th-round pick from last year? I'm sorry, that's a bad sign for the New Orleans Saints coaching staff.
No, I agree. It's probably because he's not a very good player and shouldn't have been in the second round, and there was a reason he was in college for as long as he was. So, I mean, for me, I still, though, believe there is zero reason, if you're the New Orleans Saints, you go with Spencer Rattler. Because if you're going to prioritize like who was just the better player in camp, as if like that's going to help you become a playoff contender this year, that's just, to me, misguided. I mean, you did move up in the second round for Shough. He is an older player. You don't have time to waste to find out what he can do. And yeah, you would have hoped that he wins the job. But again, this season for the Saints isn't about the short term. It's about the long term. You know Spencer Rattler isn't going to be the face of your franchise. So there is zero incentive, in my opinion, for going with Rattler. Play Shough. If he's terrible, perfect. You have a top pick next year to go get a quarterback. And if he's good, there you go. But again, like, he's an older player that you traded up for in the second round. I don't see the incentive of going with the black and white. Well, Spencer Rattler was the better player, so therefore he wins the job. Like, no, that shouldn't be how everything is always operated. But you can't really tell a coach that when for a coach their job is to win games right now. I always think through a GM perspective. And with that, I don't know why Rattler would be the guy, even if he's the better current player.
And you know what? To me, it's like, I just have no faith in Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley as a combo. And this isn't an Anthony Richardson situation where you could argue, hey, this guy's so raw, so unrefined, let's sit him, just because we don't want to ruin his confidence, we don't want to ruin his development, put him out there too early. Like, you can't even make that argument here. This is the total opposite. This dude is, I always bring it up because it's so insane. He backed up Justin Herbert in college.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's just insane. This isn't that situation. So if this guy at his age with his experience isn't ready to go more than Spencer Rattler, it's just such a bad first loss overall for the coaching staff. And it's a coaching staff that I didn't believe in. So forgive me, but it confirms all my priors and concerns about. And if they want to win, and that's what the argument is we want to win as many games as possible, and that's why we're going with the better quarterback, then why didn't you go get Kirk Cousins? Why didn't you try to go after Aaron Rodgers? Why didn't you try to get Joe Flacco? Why aren't you trading for Jameis Winston and bringing him back home to the Bayou? I just don't understand what the Saints' plan is. They feign like they're trying to be competitive, but their roster and the decisions they make don't look like they're trying to max competitiveness. But if you're not trying to max competitiveness, then you need to max development and future, and they're not doing that either. It's just a team that just seems so stricken with their identity that they just have no direction. And I'm sorry, but Kellen Moore isn't a strong enough personality hub like a Vrabel or a Sirianni or something. Like, he's not a strong enough personality to raise that team out of the relative obscurity that they're in right now, in my opinion. It's a terrible match of a lifeless, directionless franchise and a coach that doesn't have the moxie to pull his team in one direction.
No, I agree. And I just think you need to embrace who you are. And I think you're the worst team in the NFL, and your roster just is not ready to compete right now. So, yeah, I think from the start, I mean, when they traded up for Shough, I'm like, this is just not going to work. I mean, the logic between, trading up for a player that's that old as a prospect, like, that has just never worked in the NFL. The only real recent, example we can pick is Brandon Weeden with Cleveland, and that was a disaster. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the New Orleans approach. I think since Drew Brees has been gone, Tyler, they've been dealing with identity issues at every position, including quarterback. So I think it just continues to be New Orleans aimlessly wandering in this roster construction. And I think they just need to focus on the upcoming draft, because I don't think they have their answer right now on the roster for quarterback.
And I know it's hard for Kellen Moore to have that mindset when he needs to win as many games or try to
that's
win
the
games,
issue, yeah.
But that is my issue too, because if you're going to hire Kellen Moore, and I would hope, and we don't know that this isn't true, so maybe we can give the Saints credit and say that maybe this is true, but maybe behind the scenes, they've talked about this. They know that they're not going to win many games this year, and then Kellen Moore can kind of operate as he needs to, not feeling the pressure to win a bunch of games, but they just haven't said that publicly, so it's hard to know what their mindset is really. I think it comes down to, like we're talking about with age. A lot of people like to be like, it's not like when you're 26 years old, you can't learn anything new. But there is science to show that as you start getting into your mid to late 20s, it is harder for you to change who you are and what your writing is and your DNA and the development of young men athletically from, 2019 to 22 is the most formative for their athletic career.
And he has a lot of injuries too. That's the other thing.
Yes.
Like, this isn't he's older and he's had a pretty brutal injury history.
Right. So it's not just that, hey, he's 26, he's a geezer now. But there's just so much evidence, and that's why NFL teams like to draft younger players, because the ability to change who you are and to grow and to learn and be different is much more possible than a guy who, Tyler Shough at 26. I'm sorry. He is who he is. And again, I just didn't like the move. I think both of us in agreement there. I didn't like the move, and I don't think the Saints are going to be a very good team this year. If they win more than, 4 or 5 games, I would be absolutely shocked.
I was going to say, I'll take the under on that one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's show. Roster cuts are coming, folks. It's going to be a big, busy couple of days in the NFL to start the week, and the regular season is right around the corner. But again, that is going to do it for us today. As I tell you, I am your host. Got to make sure we do our proper dismount here. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Legacy Louis DiBiase, as we tell you every episode. Thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.